Hi, welcome to the Corner of Knit and Tea, episode 457. My name is Laura. I'm also known as Fluffy Kira on Twitter, Instagram, and Blue Sky. I blog over at thecornerofknitandtea.com. That's where this episode and every episode show notes will be. And I have an Etsy shop called The Corner of Knit and Tea where I sell my handspun yarns and knitting pattern designs. So hi, how are you? I hope that you are doing well. It is Monday, January 15th, which is Martin Luther King Jr. Day here in the United States. It is a holiday for some. I am working today, but it is a day to reflect on all of his accomplishments. And yeah. So I hope that you are doing well. We are amidst some very, very cold temperatures. It is not going to get above freezing until next week. And this weekend we had wind chill and real feel temperatures down in the distinct negatives. So I think it was like -11 on Saturday. And yesterday we know it did not get above zero all day. So because we watched the thermometer all day. And so we have been staying indoors. Luckily, we have, thank goodness, retained power, and our pipes are in good shape. So we have one pipe that tends to freeze up a little bit when it gets quite this cold. But the interesting thing is that it's right next to the dryer vent, which is part of why it freezes, because the dryer vent is open and so cold air comes in. But the remedy to that is to run the dryer and it heats it right back up. So I did laundry on and off all day yesterday. So I was not worried yesterday because they were definitely staying warm. So I might actually do one more load today just to like keep things nice and moving. And then we should have a bit of a respite. We should be, I realize what I'm saying. We should be back into the teens later this week. So we're not quite in like the single digits and the negative temperatures. But for now it is cold, cold, cold. And it is a great excuse to wear all the woolens and cover up in all the blankets. And so I am taking advantage of my opportunity to do that. So I hope that you are doing well. I have some crafting to show you this week. I do not have as much as I had hoped to show you. And I think part of that is because I often work on one project that I don't show you, which is I work on chicken feathers for the City Girl farm. And most of the time they're in like black and white. And so it's not very exciting. So I don't bring them to show you because they'd all look the same. And this week I'm working on some, well, technically it's gray, black and gray this week. But the issue is that it is super, super thick. It's much thicker than they usually spin. And it has been making my arms and hands really sore. And so I just haven't done as much knitting this week. So, but I do have a couple spins to show you. And so let's get started. So today I am drinking a creme brulee tea from T2. And it comes in this cute little cube. And the tea tastes like caramel and hazelnuts and vanilla. And what it's got is black tea, natural and artificial flavor, hazelnut praline, which is sugar and hazelnuts. And so it's a nice sweet one, lovely. And I am drinking it in my Oive all day mug, which is always, always, always perfect for a Monday, right? So that is what I'm up to. So let's get into the knits. I have no finished objects. Well, okay. I have a couple finished objects. Okay, the first thing that I talked about is that I wanted to work on my chicken feathers, and I showed you mine last week. And I knew that I was going to, or I need to do lots more before mine can be ready, or before I have enough so that I can work on my chicken. And so I worked on feathers, and my goal was to work on them all 7 nights, and I did not, because best laid plans, I ran out of handspun very early on. So what I did finish is I finished 3. So I have 3 new sets of feathers, and these are washed and blocked and ready to go. So I was a little productive. I didn't get as much as I wanted, but these are the 3 sets of feathers. And if you are new here, and I'm talking about chickens, and this sounds crazy to you, go and Google the City Girl Farm. It's 4 words, the City Girl Farm, and they make chicken footstools, and I have been working with them on a contract basis for several years now, and most of the work that I do for them is for commissions and for the art that they're producing, but one of the benefits or perks is that as a consistent contributor, I get to make my own. So I am making my own These are chicken footstools that have wool, either knitted, spun, felted, and they are kind of architectural art pieces. I don't know exactly how to, they can be used as furniture, but they are also art pieces. And so I am working on making one for myself. And all I need to do is finish up the knitting, which is proving a little harder than one would think. All I need to do is knit everything to cover my chicken, and then they will help me sew it together, and I will have my own chicken. So I am using, as a reminder, I'm using Ross Farms Shetland, which is some yarn that I bought at a play-away years ago, and decided not to make a sweater out of. That's kind of the oatmeal neutral color. And then I am using Handspun, which is Hello Yarn, and it was the enchilada night. I bought a bag of her seconds, which is just little bits and bobs. So I have about a pound of that I am spinning up as the contrast. So that is what that is. So technically, I guess I have 3 small finished objects, but they are not much when you count on the big finished object. This brings me up to a total of 9 sets of feathers, and I probably need close to 30. So I guess I'm a third of the way there, but this has been ongoing longer than you would think. So but I did spin some more that will be in spinning, and so my goal again this week is to work on more of these. So then to the knit that I had in progress the last time we spoke, and I just dropped something, but I'll have to get it. Last week when we spoke, I showed you that I was working on mittens because I'm calling 2024 the year of the mittening. I always kind of do, or for the last quite a few years, I have done charity projects, and for a long time I was really into hats because hats knit up quickly. They are like a day or two, and so they are kind of an instant gratification project for me, and I love them. But I was looking for ways to use my scraps, and I do have some larger scraps, and so I have been turning them into pairs of mittens. So these are the, I think, Easy Twisted Rib Mittens by Heather Walpole, who is from UU Knit, UU like the female sheep, and it is a free pattern available on her website, so it is linked in the show notes, and these are just a simple pair of mittens that are kind of color blocked, and then the other mitten is the reverse. So this is the one I showed you last week. This is the size large. I just decided because I had enough yarn, I'd see what I could do. So it's a twisted rib cuff and then just 2 sections in the colors, and then the other mitten is the opposite. And I got through the thumb hole last night, and I'm now on the, oof, I've got ends everywhere. So let me see if I can make this a little bit easier for you to see and not be quite so crazy. So this is the mate. So I did the twisted rib cuff, I got through the thumb gusset, and as you can see right here on the needle, I am just joining the green back in to do the mitten top. The astute among you will notice that I am working on mittens and no thumbs. The reason I don't like mittens is because I don't like thumbs, but I will put thumbs on them, and so my goal is to finish this pair this week, and I have a whole load more of scraps, and I think I might even use this pattern again, although I don't know if I'll color block it exactly the same way, but this was a pretty simple pattern written for the approximate weight of yarn that I have. So my thought is that I might actually knit this pattern one more time to use up some more scraps because I have lots of little bits. But my guess is I'm going to make it a little bit stripey because I have lots of different colors and little bits that might be fun highlights. So I think I'll probably make it in more than 2 colors because I could totally see like the mitten top being stripey, or adding a stripe into the cuff, or just something. I don't know what, but I'm thinking about it. So I hope to finish these this week. The 2 yarns that I am using are Brown Sheep. The one on top is Prairie Spun in their like oatmeal heather, and then the one on bottom is Stratosphere. The difference between the 2 is Prairie Spun is a woolen spun, DK weight, non-superwash, and Stratosphere is the superwash version, and it is probably worsted spun because it is actually thicker. I think they'll wear okay, and I'll be honest, while the mittens are intended to wear well, they are also potentially going to folks who don't have the ability to take care of them. They may be going to folks who have issues with housing, and so if they just last and keep them warm as long as they keep them warm, then if they don't last more than a season or 2, that is kind of okay. I mean, I don't knit with the intention of it being disposable, but if they are worn and loved and worn out, that is okay, and I will continue knitting more pairs. So I think it will be fine. Also, it's on the hands, so I don't think I don't think it's a place that's going to get a lot of wear. It's not like an armpit or something that would felt. And honestly, if it does felt a little bit, that will just make them stronger as opposed to weaker. So that is what I'm working on. So the last thing that I did is I cast on something new, and I wasn't really supposed to do this, but when I ran out of handspun to knit more feathers, I was like, well, I might as well cast on something new and start working on it. And because it was going to take me at least a night to spin it up and then a day or two to like wash it and let it dry. And so it was going to take me a few days before I could start again anyway, and there was no point in not doing something. So I cast on, like I talked about, I cast on a hat for Eat, Sleep, Knits first quarter challenge, which is a kind of something gnome themed, and I am using Yarn Love Amy March DK, and this is in the colorway Conifer, which is just a really rich foresty green. I don't think you're seeing quite well. You can kind of see it. It is a semi-solid, so it's got loads of lovely tonal not speckles, but tonal bits, and it's really, really pretty. I think that's a pretty good estimation of the color and the dyeing. And so I started on my hat. I am knitting Anne of Green Cables, which is a hat by Sarah Shira, who I also affectionately call the Gnome Lady. She is the one responsible for so many gnomes, including Norman, who sits behind me. And this is... all of her gnomes have names that start with N or GN. So Nathan is GNATHAN, and Norman is GNORMAN. I'm getting ahead of myself. What I am knitting is actually Nathan's hat, GNATHAN. And what she did is she took the mini gnome-sized hat from her small like fingering toy, and she turned it into a hat for adults and kids. She turned it into a real person-sized hat. And so I am working on that, and I got through part of the first chart, and you can see it's cables, and it's textured stitching, and it's really, really lovely. And the yarn is really, really lovely. It is super squishy. I am not 100% on gauge. I am a little bit looser than the gauge. No, I did not gauge swatch. Yes, I know. And my plan is to just work through it. I think because I'm a little bit off gauge, the hat will actually fit perfectly. Because I was kind of between the small and the medium, and so I think that is where I will end up. But it is just a lovely, I worked on this over the weekend, and it was really, really nice, and the cables are pretty intuitive. I mean, I do have to look, but the cables are pretty intuitive, and they're just going to make these kind of diamond shapes when they're in full, and so I have a ways to go because this is going to be a very long stocking cap, and I don't start decreasing stitches for quite a while. I think it has 4 charts, and I think the decreases don't start until the 3rd or 4th chart. So I have lots of knitting to do, but I will be working on this in my free time over the next few weeks, and hopefully we'll knock this out. It is the first quarter challenge, so it's not due till sometime in March for potential points and prizes. So I'm just going to keep working on it as I can. So that is what is on the needles this week. And like I said, you'll be seeing more chicken feathers, I hope. And I'll finish Mittens and maybe start another pair of Mittens and work on my hat a little bit. So that's kind of what's coming up in the next week. When the hat is done, I have some socks I would like to do, so I will probably put those on next. I feel like having a few different projects going is, I'm not a monogamous knitter, in part because I like to vary some of the yarn weights that I'm knitting with, so that I'm not constantly knitting with only bulky or only worsted or only fingering. I find that that helps me move between projects much more easily, and so I will start a fingering weight sock project. I'll have a mitten project on the go, and then I will have chicken feathers, obviously, until I finish that project. And that one I am hoping to knock out maybe in the first quarter. Let's see, at 3 a week, it would take me, well, I need 21 more, so 7 weeks. So I could do that in the next couple months. So that is the knitting content for today. I know it's a little bit short, but that is what I'm working on and what I got done this week. So let's move on to spinning, because I actually have quite a bit more there. So the one that fell on the floor is the spin that I just finished, and I showed you this a few weeks ago and talked about it. It is a Gritty Knits sock spinning kit, and it is bits and bobs of fibers, and the mix is 43% BFL, 43% superwash BFL, and 14% nylon. I think that adds up. Yes, 43, 43, 86, 14. Yes. Okay, so I finished it, and these are going to be socks for myself, and so it is not washed. I just pulled it off the wheel this morning because I just plied it last night. It is fairly grungy colors. It's on a, I believe it's on a dark BFL. And so there are some sections that had yellows and pinks and purples and a little bit of teal. Let's see if I can find some of the teal, because there are a few spots that have teal and blue in there. And so they're going to be kind of muddled socks, but that is okay. They might look a little bit tweedy. I'm really just excited to have more yarn, and these actually might be the next socks on the needle. Ugh. I can't decide. So what's really funny is that last week I talked to one of my friends, and I said, or it was at knit night last week, we were talking about socks and how this time of year I just want to wear wool socks because they're the coziest thing ever. And I talked about how my sock drawer just is overflowing. Like it is stuffed to bursting. And so I have no business knitting myself more socks. And one of my friends said, yeah, but socks wear out. And I said, you know, what's interesting? Most of my socks have not worn out. You know what happened this week, right? They're actually right here. Let me pull them out if I can. They're in the trash. I hate to say it, they're in the trash because one of them blew a really big hole, and then when I looked at the sole of the other one, it was just about to blow a big hole, and they're super, super threadbare. And so I could take off the foot and knit a different foot, but I just decided, I looked back, and these have been in loyal service for 8 or 9 years now, and so I just decided their time has come, the sun has set, and I will work on something else. The other thing is that I knit sock yarn I spin up and knit sock yarn pretty indiscriminately between something that has nylon or is superwash and something that doesn't. And I suspect that these were a merino pair of socks that did not have anything reinforcing them. And so that is probably why they wore out, because I looked at the feet of my other socks, the ones that I've made in Corriedale and anything that has a little bit of nylon in it, and they are fine. So I was making dinner the other night. Oh, this is covered in fuzz. And I was standing in the kitchen, and the floor in the kitchen was a little bit cold. And all of a sudden, I had a cold spot on my foot. And I was like, why do I feel like I can feel the floor through my sock? And this is what I found. So you can see that's a big old hole. It's not moth-eaten. Everything is just worn really, really thin right there. And the rest of the foot, towards the heel, it's in better shape, but more of the foot is definitely really kind of threadbare. And then when I went and looked at this one, you can see I'm about to get another one right there. Like it just tiny little threads are hanging on. Let's see if I can bring this forward. Yeah, you can see it right there. Like there's a hole basically right there that's about to bust up. And so I just decided that these were, like I said, I know that I could mend them. But I would probably have to take off a big chunk of the foot because the rest of the sole looks pretty well worn too. And I don't have any more of this yarn, and I just decided that, you know what, these are we're gonna sunset them. We're gonna say our goodbyes, and we're gonna move on and find some new socks. And so now I can sort of knit socks without a lot of guilt because I'm sure that a couple pairs will bust up, and so yeah, so now I can knit new socks. So this is actually going to be for me, but I have a new spin coming up this week that will be for the shop. So I finished that, and I just need to wash it now, and then maybe when I'm done with the hat, I will cast on 4 socks for me. And I already have a cool pattern picked out, so it's a little bit different, but I saw someone else knit it, and it looked kind of interesting. It's a kind of a sock without a heel, and so I'm curious to see what it looks like. So the second hand spun that I did this week, and this was literally just an evening at the wheel, was I went ahead and spun more for my chicken. So this is enchilada night. It is, yes, extra special curly. It's singles. They are overspun. They were the same in the other squares. Just as I knit them up, I pull the kinks out and keep going. I spun this as singles, and then I stuck it in the sink, and I did exactly what you are not supposed to do with hand spun. I intentionally kind of folded and felted it a little bit. So most hand spun, what you want to do is wash it very carefully because you do not want it to felt. But one of the ways, let's talk about what spinning is so that I can talk about singles, and this actually might help you if you are newer to knitting understand a little bit about yarn structure. So when you have fiber and you want to turn it into yarn, the thing that you do is you add twist to it. The twist makes it stronger and hold together better because when you have bits of fiber, let me see if I have any bits of fiber here. I don't know that I have a lot, but okay. So here's a little bit of fiber. This is like a tuft of fiber. It's not enough to spin with, but this is a tuft of fiber. And what you can see, this is processed into roving or sliver processed top. So I should say this is top. It's not roving because roving is technically different even though we refer to it as that. This is top, meaning all the hairs were combed in the same direction, so they're pretty nice and smooth, and then it was dyed. This section doesn't have a lot of dye in it. This is mostly undyed, but usually the dye is processed. So as you spin, you do what's called drafting, which is you pull the fibers apart a little bit to lengthen them, and that is I wouldn't do it in something this thin normally. Usually you'd have like a big hunk of fiber, and you're drafting and you're pulling them apart gently is to create a thinner strand of what will ultimately become yarn. So as you pull it apart a little bit, and then you're treadling on your wheel, and your wheel is adding twist, and as you are adding twist to this, it becomes stronger because of the twist, and it becomes less likely to pull apart because of the twist you add. So you add a whole bunch of twist on your wheel, and then you have what is called a singles. And so singles yarns can be unbalanced. I tend to overspin my singles because normally I'm making more than one ply, and I'll get there in a minute. So you spin your singles in one direction and you just keep spinning, and it makes a tighter yarn that doesn't pull apart. So even just adding that little bit of twist as I pull here, these do not pull apart. Now, if I yanked it, I probably could still pull them apart because they're not that twisted. But so I twisted it and I added strength. I could then use this, leave this as a single, or I could make more singles and I could ply the singles together for even more strength. So generally what you're knitting with when you're knitting with most commercial yarns, not all, but most commercial yarns, is you are knitting with a plied yarn, which is a bunch of different strands that we spinners call singles, and they are spun around each other. And so basically, getting super deep in the weeds here, but you spin all of your plies, all of your singles, in one direction, and then what you do is you twist them back on each other and you ply in the opposite direction in most cases, and that relieves a little bit of the twist and it coils them all up together. So that is sort of the basic process of making a yarn. Now, many of you have knit with, and there are lots of different varieties of yarn, there are lots of different varieties of spinning, but that is kind of sort of the basic 101 spinning. You take the fiber, you draft it apart until it's the thickness you want, you add twist, and then you can add multiple strands. Now, when you spin a single and you want to leave it as a single, now think about the singles yarns you have knit with. If you have knit with Madeline Tosh Merino Light, if you have knit with Malabrigo Lace Weight, I'm trying to think. There are many dyers who use singles. I mean, Hedgehog Skinny Singles. I can think of a ton of different dyers who do singles, of course not right at this second put on the spot. Many dyers leave them as singles, and when things are commercially spun, you adjust. You don't add quite so much spin to it in the twisting. You don't add quite so much twist to it so that it relaxes and hangs straight and is balanced. Now, if I let this go, you'll see that this will actually twist up on itself. That sort of almost plied that little section into a yarn. So that is why this yarn has all these coils in it, because there was too much tension in it. Now, when your yarn is plied and finished, it is quite strong as it is, and you don't really need to do anything to enhance the strength. Now, many of us have gotten in the position where we have either intentionally or accidentally felted something. You know, you put the sweater in the wash and it came out 12 sizes too small and in a really thick fabric. Or you have intentionally knitted slippers or pot holders or something else, and you have intentionally felted them to make them much more thick. And when you felt something, what you are doing is you are roughing up the fibers, you are roughing up the scales at the edge of the fibers, and so they are interlocking and they are kind of forming a much tighter bond, and that is kind of the, I don't want to say the matted appearance, but that is the felted appearance that you have. Now, for most spun yarns, you would not want to felt your yarn because you would not want it to be thick and tight. You want it to be springy and you want it to be nice to knit with. But when you are spinning singles, they're not as strong as plied yarns because it's only, remember, it's only one yarn and it's only plied. It's only plied in one direction, so you don't have all of that extra strength. And so sometimes the way you finish a singles yarn, I know I'm getting so deep into the weeds, I hope you're still with me, and if not, just skip ahead. But I am almost done. When I finish singles, a lot of times what I like to do is I like to felt them a little bit so they are a little stronger. I want them to not lose all their springiness, but I also want them to be just a little bit more felted on the outside so that they don't unspin and fall apart. So what you've seen here is that this is a little bit felted. It's just got a little bit more of a matte presentation. And like you can see here, you can see, well, that's the end. So that's actually not that great an example, but you can see that I have felted this section here. So what I did to do that is exactly what you don't want to do for most of your spinning and washing things, is I turned it on hot and then I turned it on cold and then I turned it on hot and I turned it on cold, and I did a lot of agitation and rubbed it against itself. So that is the skein that is finished. You can see all the fun colors in there, and I'm going to wind that up tonight, and that means that I can start knitting more feathers this week, and hopefully I will knit 3 or 4 stacks by the time I see you next. So all that's left is for me to show you what I'm actually going to spin this week. And just this past week, Into the World updated with some fiber on their website, and I don't pay attention to them. Well, okay. I don't see their stuff that often, but I do follow them on social media. And I also know that for many times during the year, Into the World is a big fiber booth. Like, I know they have a huge booth at Maryland Sheep and Wool and at Rhinebeck and at other places. And so oftentimes there's not, I don't find that there's inventory on their website, although I'm sure sometimes there is. But they posted that they had an update with a bunch of fibers in the shop, and because I don't get to shop there very often, I went and looked, and what I found is a colorway called Rhinebeck. It's probably left over from Rhinebeck, or because the colorway was so popular. It's dyed on gray Corriedale, which, as you know, I love, love, love for socks, but this will be going into the shop. And so this is the braid. It's really all those fall colors. It's plums and burgundies and like reds and then yellows and a little bit of orange in there, and it is just absolutely stunning. The gray Corriedale means that the fiber underneath was darker, and you can see that it creates more mottled colors because you can see some of the dark in there. That's not dyed black. That is dyed with color, but the underlying fiber is like black and gray and white. So that is what I'm going to spin this week, and this will be spun into sock yarn, and it will be up in the shop in just a bit, but I'm very excited to get that one started. So I hope that you have had a good week. I hope that you are staying warm where you are if you are in cold areas. I know a huge chunk of the United States is really, really cold. Basically the middle to the eastern seaboard, well, not all of the eastern seaboard, but like the middle hunk of the United States from north to south is very cold. Like even Arkansas is supposed to be getting snow today, and they've canceled everything because they never get snow. So they don't have salt, they don't have trucks, they don't have anything. So they just don't want anybody out on the streets. So I hope that you are doing well. I hope that you're surviving the cold snap if you are living within it. I hope that if you are not living in cold weather, that you are enjoying some sunshine for the rest of us, because there's not a lot here. I wish you warm, delicious beverages and lots of crafty mojo, and I will see you next time. So I'll say happy spinning, happy knitting, happy spinning, happy sipping, and I'll see you next Monday. Bye.